All right, let's dive in. We're taking on a murder mystery this time, the alibi exchange. This author, he doesn't mess around, drops us right into the action. Imagine you're a journalist and a friend, someone you know,
Right.
sends you this cryptic message, and then boom,
Yeah.
she turns up dead.
Yeah.
That's our main character, Ben Harper. He's the one trying to piece it all together.
And that message right from the start, it really hooks you. We need to talk. I've uncovered something big. Be careful. It makes you think, like, what did Rachel find that was so dangerous?
Yeah, exactly. The official story is suicide.
Right.
But Ben, he's not buying it. He knew Rachel,
Yeah.
and something's not adding up. So he starts investigating, like any good journalist would.
Well, of course. And we're better to start than a funeral. It's like a gathering of suspects, right? The author does a great job
Absolutely.
using these little details to introduce each character.
We've got David Grant, Rachel's client. He's a nervous wreck, practically sweating bullets. Then there's Sandra Patel, her law partner, giving this super polished eulogy, but there's something, I don't know, cold about her.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's Ethan Caldwell, Rachel's ex-fiancé. He's kind of lurking in the background, looking pretty shady.
It's so clever how the author makes you question everybody. Like, is David nervous because he's grieving, or is he hiding something?
Right.
And Sandra, is she really sad, or is it all just for show?
It's all about those subtle hints,
Sandra's ex.
making us doubt everyone's motive.
Yeah, he plants those seeds early on.
And then, to make things even more intense, Detective Olivia Cross pulls Ben aside with a warning. Don't dig too deep, Harper. Sometimes the truth isn't worth the cost.
Ooh, chills, right?
Seriously creepy. What do you make of that?
I mean, it could be a genuine concern, you know? Like maybe she knows something Ben doesn't, something dangerous.
Or maybe she's trying to scare him off.
Yeah.
Intimidation tactic?
Could be. Either way, it definitely adds to the suspense.
So Ben starts interviewing the suspects, and that's where things get really tangled. Chapter 3 is all about their alibis.
Oh, yeah. And let me tell you, these alibis are all over the place.
Completely.
This is where the author uses this great technique, the unreliable narrator.
Oh, interesting.
Each person gives their version of events, their version of Rachel, but it's so obvious they're not being totally honest.
Like they're twisting things, leaving stuff out.
Exactly. They're trying to make themselves look good, obviously.
So David, the client, he claims Rachel was helping him expose this pharmaceutical company, Genesis. Says they were trying to blow the whistle on some shady stuff. But now he's worried she got in too deep.
Yeah, he paints her as this crusader fighting for justice.
Right.
It makes you almost admire her and maybe him by association, right?
But then you hear from Sandra, and her ream, Rachel is totally different.
Oh, yeah, totally.
She says Rachel was reckless, impulsive, never thinking things through, even hints that Rachel brought this trouble on herself.
It's like they're describing two completely different people. Seriously. And then we have Ethan, the ex-fiancé. He throws another curveball into the mix. Tells Ben that Rachel called him before she died, said she was being threatened, scared for her life.
It just gets more and more complicated. So many layers.
I was like, everyone's got a piece of the puzzle, but none of the pieces fit. And on top of all that, Ben finds problems with the police report. Things that just don't make sense.
Like what?
Well, there were no signs of forced entry, but her fingerprints were wiped clean from the scene.
Suspicious.
And then the pages from her case notes, the ones about Genesis,
Right.
missing. It all points to a cover-up, doesn't it?
Definitely seems that way. Someone's trying to hide something.
It's like a hall of mirrors with all these versions of Rachel, each one twisted to fit someone's story. But it's funny, these conflicting stories actually tell us a lot about the suspects themselves. Oh, totally. It's like their view of Rachel says more about them than about her. Take David, for example. Calling her a crusader maybe makes him feel better about what he was doing, like they were partners in crime fighting or something.
Yeah, exactly. He's using her supposed heroism to make himself look good.
Exactly.
But Sandra, she goes the opposite way, right? Painting Rachel as this reckless, loose cannon, trying to discredit her, make it seem like she was asking for trouble.
Makes you wonder why, though. What's Sandra so afraid of?
Well, remember that email Ben found? The one where Rachel accuses Sandra of being involved with Genesis and refusing to cover for her anymore.
Ooh, yeah, that was a bombshell.
Changes everything. Right. Suddenly, Sandra's perfect composure starts to look like she's hiding something.
Totally. And when Ben confronts her with that email and the evidence that someone from her firm messed with Rachel's computer, she totally cracks. Just for a second, but it's there.
That little flicker of panic. And then there's Ethan, caught in the middle of this whole thing. He's still in love with Rachel, heartbroken.
Totally. So vulnerable.
And Sandra takes advantage of that, blackmails him into giving her a false alibi.
Ugh, that's just awful. Using his grief against him? Talk about kicking someone when they're down.
It makes you think about power, right? How people use it to manipulate others, especially when they're already hurting.
Absolutely. And it makes you question everyone's motives even more. Are any of them truly innocent?
Right. Even David, the whistleblower, he's not as squeaky clean as he seems. Remember that recording Rachel sent Ben? Where David's worried she'll expose him for leaking classified documents.
Oh, that's right. Everyone's got secrets. Their actions, it's all driven by those secrets. It's kind of like even the good guys have agendas, you know?
It's a little depressing, isn't it?
Kind of, yeah. Like even in a story about truth and justice, it's all shades of gray.
Exactly. So we've got suspects, motives, alibis that don't hold up. How does Ben actually catch the killer?
Well, in Chapter 5, he teams up with Detective Cross, and they hatch this plan, a trap to lure the killer out. It's pretty clever.
Oh, tell me more.
They leak fake information, a made-up clue to make it seem like they're on to someone new.
Gotcha.
They know the real killer's going to be watching,
Right.
Trying to figure out what they know.
Makes sense. Classic misdirection, like in those old detective movies.
Exactly. It's all about manipulating the suspect, getting them to slip up, and that's what happens.
Sandra takes the bait.
Hook, line, and sinker. She panics and tries to access police records, see what this new evidence is, but she makes a mistake.
What'd you do?
She uses her work computer, leaves a digital trail a mile wide. You know, with tech these days, it's hard to hide. It's like everything's a witness.
So they nail her with that.
Yep. Sandra confesses, admits to orchestrating Rachel's death, says she did it to protect her career and Jensis's reputation. But let's be real, it's all about saving herself.
No remorse at all.
Not really, just trying to justify what she did. But in the end, we see her true colors. Ambition and power, that's all that matters to her. It's kind of scary, you know, what people will do for success.
Chilling. But at least the truth about Jensis comes out, right?
Yeah.
Rachel's work, all her efforts, they weren't in vain.
Yeah, there's that. It's a bittersweet victory, though. Rachel's gone, and that's a tragedy.
For sure. But her story, it reminds us that one person can make a difference.
Exactly. Even against powerful forces, speaking truth to power, it matters.
You know, we talk about these murder mysteries, and it's easy to get caught up in the puzzle of it all. But the alibi exchange, it really gets you thinking about truth, you know, how we deal with it in our own lives.
Right. Everyone's got an angle, their own version of things.
Exactly. Like when Ben finds out about David, the whistleblower, being afraid of exposure too, it's like even the people fighting for the good cause, they still have secrets. Makes you wonder if you can ever really know someone's full story.
Yeah, the book doesn't give you easy answers, leaves you with those questions lingering.
It does. Think about Sandra, this high-powered lawyer. She's so driven to protect her career, but she ends up doing terrible things.
At what cost, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, how far would any of us go to protect what we have? Our reputation, our job.
It's not always these huge dramatic things either.
Right. It's the little lies, the things we don't say. They can have big consequences. It makes you think about the weight of our choices, you know, how they affect everyone around us.
One thing that struck me was the setting, a law firm.
Yeah.
You think, okay, truth, justice, that's what they're all about. But this story shows how those ideals can get twisted.
That's what's so scary about Sandra. She's supposed to uphold the law, but she ends up manipulating it for her own gain. Makes you wonder how we guard against that.
In our own lives, too, right? Not just in these big institutions.
Exactly. It's about accountability, speaking up when something's wrong, even if it's hard.
And it's not just about calling other people out. It's about looking at ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
Making sure we're actually living by the values we talk about.
Walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. But, you know, the story does have some hope in it, too.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Even with all the lies and darkness, in the end, Rachel's search for the truth, it wins out. Shows that one person's commitment to what's right can have a real impact.
It's what I find so inspiring about it. It's not always easy, but standing up for what you believe in, it matters, even if you don't see the results right away.
It's about not giving up on that search for truth. It's so easy these days to get cynical, feel like it's all pointless.
Too much information, too much noise.
Yeah. But this story reminds us that truth does matter. And our efforts to find it, to speak it, they make a difference.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the alibi exchange, I want to leave you with this thought. What are the alibis you might be holding on to in your own life? What truths are you searching for? Are you willing to face them, even if it's uncomfortable? Because sometimes those tough questions are the key to real change.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We hope it's given you something to think about, maybe even inspired you to keep searching for those truths in your own life.